Hi guys, it's Erin here, and today I want to talk about 6 ways that you can make a positive first impression in a job interview. There have been a number of studies that have been done that assess how long it takes most interviewers to make up their mind about a job candidate. And the results of those studies are actually pretty shocking. So they've shown that in most cases, interviewers are making up their mind about whether or not you're right for the job within the first 5 to 15 minutes of the job interview. The studies have also shown that once interviewers make up their mind about a job candidate, they tend to spend the rest of the interview just looking for ways to validate that initial decision. The point of all this is that it's really important that you make a positive first impression since their mind will be made up in those first few minutes. And there are things that you can actually do and prepare for ahead of time that will help you to put your best foot forward. So, my first recommendation for making a positive first impression in your job interview is to be on time. There's no better way to kill your chances of getting a job than to show up late. And, for a lot of interviewers, being late is a sign of a lack of interest or a lack of respect. And, there's things that come up. Kids, traffic jams, train delays, things come up that can make us late. And so when I tell people be on time, I actually mean be early. So what I suggest for most people is to find out where the interview is going to be, Google map it, find a coffee shop or somewhere else nearby where you can go after your commute, regroup, get into the right frame of mind, and make sure that you're poised and ready to go. And so you're not showing up disheveled or frazzled, because you were almost late or late, but you're showing up right on time and poised and ready to put your best foot forward. The next tip for making a positive first impression is to have a polished and professional appearance. So the key here is to dress for the industry or the role that you're interviewing for. For most of corporate America, this is going to mean wearing a suit. The suit should be neat, it should be pressed, and it should fit. Do not try and fit into the suit you bought 10 years ago when you were graduating from college and preparing for post-college interviews. Make sure that it fits you well and that you are presenting, like I said, your most professional version of yourself. The exception to this rule is if you're interviewing in an industry where, suits are not the norm, say the fashion industry or a startup company. In those cases, a suit might not be appropriate. And in fact, I've heard from some startup clients that, when someone shows up in a suit, it can be a little bit awkward. So if you have doubts about what the attire should be and what's most appropriate, ask the recruiter or the person coordinating your interviews what would be appropriate for the interviews. And they'll usually be pretty good about, giving you some helpful guidance in that regard. In terms of appearance, another thing to keep in mind is you don't want anything about your appearance to be the most memorable thing about you or to detract from what you say about your experience. So, your beard should be trimmed. Your nails should be, short and neutral, nothing kind of ostentatious or that will detract from what you have to say about your experience. So something that comes to mind is I recently had a candidate interview with one of my clients, and after the interview, the client commented to me that the candidate was quite good, but that she wore these giant, brightly colored earrings that were actually really distracting. And, you just don't want something about your appearance or something that you wear to be the most memorable thing about you. You really want your experience, the skill set, what you bring to the table. That's what you want the interviewer to walk away from the interview remembering. So keep that in mind as you're planning your attire for the interview, and, make sure that it is the most polished and professional version of yourself. The next piece of advice I have for making a positive first impression is to give a good handshake. There are few things that are more off-putting than a limp handshake, except maybe a wet limp handshake. So, for some people, you get sweaty palms before an interview. And what I suggest for candidates who do get sweaty palms when they're nervous is, bring a paper towel or a napkin. wrap it around your hand and put it in your, either put the napkin in your pocket or in your purse before you shake the interviewer's hand so that your palm is as dry as possible. In terms of the handshake itself, you want the handshake to be firm. On the one hand, you don't want a limp handshake. On the other hand, you don't want it to be so firm that it feels aggressive. I've had people where I think they took it to the other extreme and they shake my hand so aggressively that I feel like they're trying to crack my knuckles. You want it to be in the middle. And what I tell people in terms of firmness is to think about squeezing, a peach or a tomato to test its ripeness. That should be about the level of firmness that you use when you're shaking your interviewer's hand. The next way to make a positive first impression is to smile. And there's a saying that there's no shorter distance between two people than a smile, and I think that's really true. And it's a great way, if you give a genuine warm smile to your interviewer when you first meet them, it's a great way to establish immediate connection. It's also really important during interviews to project confidence in yourself. And by smiling, by giving a genuine smile, that's a great way to do that and to establish that connection. So be sure to do that when you first greet your interviewer. The next way to make a good first impression is to maintain eye contact. And as with many things in life, what you're aiming for here is a happy medium. On the one hand, you don't want to be looking in your lap or looking over the interviewer's shoulder or looking at their desk. You want to be looking into their eyes. On the other hand, you don't want to maintain unblinking eye contact for the duration of the interview. The recommendation is to have about 60% eye contact while you're talking and about 70% while you're listening. You can briefly look away. A good time to do that is maybe if you're thinking of an answer to a question that's just been asked, and you can, briefly avert your eyes just to break that eye contact. But for the majority of the time that you're speaking with your interviewer, you should be maintaining eye contact, and that projects confidence. The next way, and actually the last way that I recommend you make a good first impression is to have good posture and to not fidget. So I recently met with a candidate who I was preparing for an interview, and throughout our conversation, he sort of sat like this, leaned to one side, and also shook his leg up and down for the duration of our talk. And by the end of it, I had to point it out to him, and he wasn't even aware that he was doing it. For a lot of us, we fidget. We have certain things that we do, shake our leg or, fidget with our hands. And again, you don't want your body language to be distracting. You want what the interviewer remembers to be your confidence, what you say about your experience. And so it's important that you project the confidence by having good posture and by not fidgeting and distracting from what is coming out of your mouth. These are all things that you can practice ahead of time, and they're really important. As the studies have shown, most interviewers are making their mind up about you as a job candidate within the first few minutes. So if there are things that you can do to put yourself in the best position to make a positive impression, then you should do them. And these are 6 things that you can do and you can practice that will help you to put your best foot forward and increase your chances of getting the job. So I hope this has been helpful. Please subscribe to this channel. If there are other topics that you want me to cover, please put them in the notes below, and I will be covering a lot of other interview related topics in the weeks to come, and hope to see you all soon. Thanks.